our 10th live video from Hong Kong.
Yay, 10th anniversary.
Something like that. So, things are much happier than when we checked in with you earlier this morning. We're at the main rally, and spirits are pretty high, as Matt can get the camera up there. There's a lot of people here. This isn't as big as last Sunday when there was 2 million people, but it's definitely pretty big.
So I think what happened earlier today is that we were over with where the Legislative Council is with the police. You might have seen those lives now. We are standing in the middle of what is the main parade / protest going on behind us, which is going from this is their annual July 1st protest parade, celebrating the handover from Hong Kong from the British to the People's Republic of China. So every year they do this kind of protest because to show that they can still protest in Hong Kong. So when we walked over here, there were like a bunch of civil society groups, like political groups down there passing out signs. I mean, we were here in this spot about 2 weeks ago for the 2 million person anti-extradition bill parade, and this is definitely a little smaller than that, but it's still pretty substantial.
We heard last year for the July 1st rally there might have been about 10,000 people.
This is definitely way more than that. There have also been some kind of complications with this year's protest because there's still a group of protesters at LegCo, and they had tried to ram one of the doors, the glass doors of that government building. So the police then decided to try to stop this protest from happening where we are now. So they tried to tell the organizers of this protest that they could not march, that they had to stay in a park and turn it into a rally or postpone it. And then the organizers said, no, we can't really do that. And, we saw like thousands and tens of thousands of people coming into this park. And the problem was people kind of, because they were being penned in and not being allowed to leave by the police.
And it was full sun.
Yeah, like people were fainting, having heat stroke. People had to be taken over to the first aid in wheelchairs and stretchers. So the police finally let them start moving.
Yeah, it's kind of a lame tactic by the police to just try and cordon everyone into the park.
Yeah, you can see the police, we marched, this is halfway through the march where we are looking down over right now, and the police were there were too many people to kind of march on this main road, so people were trying to spill onto a side road, and the police kept trying to get them back into the main road, not letting them out, basically try to limit the size of the protest as much as possible, make it kind of aggravating for people to march.
Yeah. But that's sort of been the theme of the entire protest movement for the past couple of weeks. Police and the government doing ham-fisted tactics to try and limit and suppress everything, and it just did not working at all.
Yeah, this morning at the flag-raising ceremony that had to be moved indoors because of the weather, supposedly. Carrie Lam made a toast, and she was like, I'm going to listen to the youth of the city. We're going to do a better job of listening, communicating with the public, and then she left immediately without taking questions.
And I think somebody made the point, the youth of the city is right outside. Actually not right outside because they put so many police barricades and 5,000 riot police, preventing the youth from actually getting anywhere near the flag-raising ceremony.
Right, but she's going to listen to the youth and do a better job with the economy from now on, hoping that that's going to basically make people feel good enough to stop protesting, basically. I don't know if it's going to work, because we're still seeing a lot of people back here, a lot of chants of Carrie Lam resign.
I've also seen calls for universal suffrage again.
Yeah, that's interesting. We've seen the organizers at the park where the initial start of the protest was. They started speaking in English for part of it, and they were saying, it's not just Carrie Lam, it's the system is broken, and the only way to fix the system is to have greater democracy. They're having the crowd chant free Hong Kong, democracy now, so that's that messaging's taken a turn. They're still demanding withdrawal of the extradition law, independent inquiry into the police brutality that happened 2 weeks ago, all the kind of traditional stuff, resignation of Carrie Lam, that comes up or it doesn't, but then now they're kind of taking a turn to more democracy kind of talk. So, yeah.
And so after we're done giving kind of an update, we will start answering questions from you, so get ready to send us your questions. What else do we have to update on?
Oh, yeah. So basically the police were trying to stop the protesters in the protest parade behind us from being able to join the protesters that are currently at the Legislative Council facing off against the police. So they were trying to make the organizers stop the rally, move the rally to a different area, but we've seen reports from other people who are at LegCo right now that the protesters are still showing up there, even though the police were trying to block them from that.
Yeah, so those protesters still at the Legislative Council are going to get reinforcements in, if not the tens of thousands, the hundreds of thousands. So Shelley's going to be pulling up YouTube so we can start answering some questions. Is there anything else we need to update on?
Just let me try to not be trying to uncensor. Hold on.
I can't even hear Shelley right now. I'm sure you can hear better than I can. But okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, just as we started doing this live, they decided to start playing very loud music behind us.
I have also been given the gimbal, so hopefully my camera work is better than earlier today. All right, so Shelley is pulling up the questions. Oh boy, I'm dehydrated. So let's see. Shelley, pick us a good question.
Someone said get some sleep.
Sleep. We may get sleep. So tonight we're kind of expecting things to also be very busy around the Legislative Council. So we're expecting also a very long night tonight. So we'll sleep maybe sometime tomorrow. All right, Matt has the camera again.
Someone's asking. We just had someone try to walk through us and walked into our...
We clotheslined him.
Yeah. So it's a little less busy on the Skywalk than it was 2 weeks ago, but still pretty bad. Somebody's...
All right, question.
Somebody donated 50,000 won. Thank you. I cannot pronounce I do not read Hangul, so...
It says HK Freedom, so yes, thank you. Hong Kong Jayo. Let's see.
Where is Jackie Chan in this? Why is he keeping a low profile?
That's actually very interesting because actually the Hong Kong Free Press had an article about this topic, how protesters have been taking Bruce Lee as a model, who is a Hong Kong martial arts movie star, but not Jackie Chan, who is also a Hong Kong martial arts star. And that's because over the years, Jackie Chan has become very pro-CCP. He's got a position on the Chinese People Consultative Conference, which is kind of a united front group. So he said a lot of... He said Hong Kong people are not ready for freedom.
No, Chinese people are not ready for freedom.
Chinese people are not ready for freedom.
They need to be controlled, is what he said. So
they're not very happy.
A lot of Hong Kongers feel like Jackie Chan is a big sellout now.
Yeah.
Also, will this be the day that Hong Kong will finally remove the extradition laws? High or low probability? I'm going to say low probability. Carrie Lam coming out today in her speech during the flag raising, basically pretending more or less that everything's been solved except the government needs to communicate better and we're all moving on now.
Yes, we don't need to talk about this anymore.
Yeah, so there's no way that she's backing down from this. So they're not going to, the language, they still just can't say that they're going to withdraw or retract the extradition laws.
Yeah. People are still not happy with the Hong Kong government. It seems like Carrie Lam, the government, is thinking they can just hold out. Keep looking for questions. It seems like they're just trying to hold out and hope this all blows over. Let's see. Billy May says he's been spreading the channel. Thanks a lot. We really appreciate when you guys share these videos because YouTube has not been promoting us.
Yeah, you can hear people yelling, add oil behind us, which means go.
I just had to prevent somebody from getting clotheslined again. So Steve O.B. says, peaceful protests only do so much, though. That's an interesting point because the research actually shows that non-violent resistance movements are far more successful at regime change and establishing democracies than violent revolutions.
Yes, violent revolutions work about 4% of the time. Non-violent protests, 40, I think. It's
about 40% of the time.
Yeah.
So despite like sort of the popular conception that like, oh, you have to like fight people, non-violence actually are better tactics.
So what will the protests achieve for today? Basically, if they get a large enough turnout of people, it'll show that they are not satisfied with the Hong Kong government and with what Carrie Lam is doing. That people from a broad section of society are still not going to kind of turn their back and be like, oh, everything's okay now. Like, we can move on. Like, the government's kind of hoping this whole thing blows over. But if enough people show up, and enough people that are not just like kind of the young protesters, but like, you know, older people, families, like they'll show that, you know, Hong Kong society as a whole is still not satisfied with what the government is doing. And an interesting point was the South China Morning Post had this pretty long article about what's going on, like kind of the behind the scenes of what happened and how the like extradition bill even came to be in the first place. And it's pretty clear that the Hong Kong government doesn't have a good mechanism for actually gauging public opinion. They just thought they could ram this extradition bill through. It totally caught them by surprise that people were worried about this at all.
Yeah, this got them completely off guard. But Shelley makes a good point about the turnout for today. We saw a poster at the protest last night that says, if you don't come out today, you can't come out tomorrow. The idea being that, like, this is kind of the last chance. If the Hong Kong people don't come out and show that they care about these things, that's going to sort of be the last nail in the coffin for the freedoms of Hong Kong. Frenky
donated 1,000 yen, thank you, and said, "Take care, stay safe. Is it still safe to go to Hong Kong for a business trip?" Yeah, it is not like a city in chaos. I mean, it is very safe still. Like, there's these clashes between some of the protesters and police happening every once in a while, but it's not a situation like there's no like cars burning in the street, that kind of thing.
I mean, protesters are picking up the trash after themselves.
Oh yeah, we were walking in the protest briefly. We were walking next to this family, this mother and her like 5 or 6 year old son maybe, who were picking up litter on the side of the march with tongs.
So like the little kid was doing that. So kids are getting activated politically very early on. Alright, whoa, what happened?
Sashwin donated $2.99 Australia and asked, will Hong Kong protests escalate Taiwan's independence?
Well, Taiwan is independent.
Well, Taiwan is a country.
Shelley, you can't say that.
Well, I think saying Taiwan's independent is actually maybe more controversial than saying, because even the DPP talks about autonomy and not independence. Independence is kind of like a red line there. So Hong Kong protests, we've seen these protests really bring Hong Kong and Taiwan closer together, which is, I don't think Beijing is happy about this part of this. I mean, they're not happy about any of this, really. No. But especially, like, Taiwan seeing what happens with one country, two systems, and then being like, oh no. You know, no.
Any hope that Beijing could convince Taiwan to unify with China under one country, two system policy? Like, it's clear that's not going to work.
Yeah, and so with these protests, like there've been like recently, like some of the, we actually including some of Hong Kong and Taiwan pop stars, including 2 people we've interviewed, Freddie Lim, the Taiwan legislator, who's also a heavy metal singer, and Denise Ho, the canto pop singer. They all released a kind of a song to support the Hong Kong protests that involved like Taiwanese stars and Hong Kong stars singing together. So there's a lot of kind of goodwill between Taiwan and Hong Kong going on because of this issue.
It's basically their version of We Are the World. All right, what else do we have?
Billy Mace donated $2 and said, I spread the channel like wildfire.
That sounds very destructive. I like it. Thank you. Whoa. So many people don't see the narrow cable here.
Green Bean 88 donated $2. Thank you, and said, "Stay hydrated and empty your bladders."
We can only do one or the other.
Somebody asked how many people are on the street. We do not know. We would say that it does not look as big as the 2 million person protest that we saw 2 weeks ago.
We weren't here for the 1 million person protest, so we don't know how this size compares to that. I would say, to me, it seems very likely that there is at least 500,000 people out here, which would make it as big as the protest in, I think, 2003 or 2004 for Article 23, which was a massive national security bill that freaked people out. Excuse me. So it's definitely at least that big. It's definitely one of the biggest protests in Hong Kong history.
I really am pretty, it's pretty funny watching people almost walk into our shop constantly.
Yeah? How do you guys like that? Comedy of errors.
500,000 is still a huge number. I think I read that last year the number of people who came to the march was about 9,800. So that's a big difference.
Yeah.
$2 from Robert Carling, thank you. Are restrooms set up for protesters?
Not really.
Not that I've seen. However, malls, shopping centers have been fine about letting protesters come in and use the bathroom. Also there's several public restrooms around certain areas that the protests usually end up in. It's just a sign of how peaceful the protests are. Okay, behind us right now are two girls walking around looking for garbage and recycling.
Very well. So that's the thing. There are some protesters who, like earlier today, there were some protesters throwing eggs at police. Matt got some egg on his face. You should check out that video. It was amazing.
Somebody's telling us, Michael Kralik is saying, the place where I stay is near Victoria Park, endless stream of people still. Yeah, I could see that this, because also the police are, 2 weeks ago during the 2 million person protest, it basically spilled from this street onto another entire street and another half street beyond that. And now police seem to be trying to force people onto just one street, which is going to basically mean the protest takes longer to finish. So it could be this is going to still be going 2 or 3 hours from now.
Very likely, which is what happened with the 2 million one. Amazing Flappies donated $2. Awesome, thank you. How did you manage to afford to stay in Hong Kong this long? Well, we've actually been, excuse me, on a really tight budget. Basically support from patrons on the crowdfunding website Patreon has been our main source of funding for the show. So that's been it. Also, the contributions you guys have given on the live chat
really helped us as well.
Yeah.
We also had a little bit socked over for kind of emergency, so we've been dipping into that fund.
Yeah, and then also just some things are done out of our personal pocket because we felt this was important to be here for.
Yeah, I have another job that I was I need to leave and go to Hong Kong now, and paid for my plane ticket out of my pocket. So.
Sure, Dafu says everyone donate. Well, that would be very nice. But even if you can't donate, sharing these videos with your friends and family is already a huge way to help the channel. That really is a big way to help.
Husky 1066 asked if we accept Bitcoin. We do.
I didn't hear that.
We accept Bitcoin. We do accept Bitcoin.
We do accept Bitcoin. Go to ChinaUncensored.tv/support to see some other ways to contribute if you don't want to do Patreon. We also have PayPal.
I asked if we're on the Wan Chai. Yeah, this is the Wan Chai bridge that we're on right now, above the Wan Chai train MTR station. How do we get a stream out of China? We're in Hong Kong, which has YouTube, unlike mainland China.
One of the many differences.
So this is the kind of stuff that the people of Hong Kong want to preserve, and they're afraid of losing these kinds of freedoms. Earlier today when we were at Victoria Park, there was actually a large Falun Gong contingent that they always march in this parade. So their kind of marching band was playing and stuff like that. So that's all the kind of stuff that you would not be able to see in mainland China, obviously. So people in Hong Kong want to preserve their religious, political, social freedoms. And that's one of the ways that the extradition law bill has kind of like touched a nerve, where people are afraid that once you kind of remove the legal firewall between China, mainland China and Hong Kong, they're afraid that that's like going to be a rapid like erosion, even more so than already is, of one country, two systems.
Yeah, and it's not just groups like Falun Gong or democracy activists. These we've seen with these protests a lot of business people, the people who traditionally do not come out for these kind of protests. This, like as Shelley said, this has touched a nerve throughout all levels of Hong Kong society. I mean, that's why you're seeing so many people.
Henny Genie donated £5 and said, "Keep up the great work, guys. Freedom to Hong Kong. Will you expand to the UK to cover Brexit?" No.
Huh?
He asked if we would cover Brexit. We're going home after this.
We need a break.
Matthew Kua donated $9.99, I guess.
Filipino? That's my guess.
Pesos?
Pesos?
Said, "Good job. Here's to help your budget. Chris needs water." Thank you.
I do. Thank you.
We will keep Chris hydrated.
Billy Mays donated another $2, I think.
I missed it. Okay.
I missed
It's the stain specialist. You two dating? No. Pontus Ekholm donated $20, 20 kroner Swedish. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Sending love from Sweden. So Thank you. Guimin Hai is missed. Oh yeah, he's a Swedish citizen.
He's one of the Hong Kong booksellers who is a Swedish citizen who is still in mainland China.
Yeah.
The booksellers thing was one of those things that really also worried Hong Kong people about, like, hey, we could just get kidnapped and brought to China.
Yeah, and there's some issues of something like that happening in Macau. Oh, Matt looks like he's getting tired. Matt has been working like a dog, filming stuff, so he's a champion.
Okay, donated $5. Australian asked, is it likely that many Hong Kongers would eventually move to Taiwan? Are there any policies in place by the Taiwanese government to address this issue? There are some. It's not like a flood of people right now, but there's actually recently a story about the Hong Kongers moving to Taiwan. And actually, I think one of the booksellers that we had previously met in Hong Kong had moved to Taiwan right before the extradition bill because he was worried. He had already been abducted once, So, yeah. So there is people, but it's not like a refugee situation right now. Also, people have other places they can go. There are about 300,000 Hong Kongers with Canadian passports. A lot of people have British national passports. So there are people who have the ability to go to other places, but there are also a lot of Hong Kongers who do not have the ability to go anywhere. And that's one of the reasons they feel so strongly about it, especially some of these young people. They cannot escape.
Though a couple weeks ago, the news broke that 2 Hong Kong citizens actually got refugee status in Germany. They were involved in the umbrella movement.
Yes.
And so that's like sort of a major change. And one thing you see with these protests is because of how hard the government cracked down on former leaders of the umbrella movement, these protests, one, are much more decentralized, so there is no leader really to be locked up, and also everyone is wearing face masks. Everyone's very paranoid about having their face on camera.
We did see that the police had arrested some of the protesters this morning, though.
Yeah. Oh, Joe Wong donated $10. Thank you, Joe, and says stay safe. Thanks, we will.
Berserker93 donated $2 Australian that says, "I believe in an independent Hong Kong, and I'm Aussie. I won't believe it until you bite a head off of that." Okay, nicely Aussie, like Australian. He did.
Jason Shawchat
donated £10 and said, "Good job, great job with your coverage and all of your work. Any evidence that the pro-Beijing police protesters are busting from Zhuhai?" No, not that we have seen.
There are lots of rumors that go around like, oh, is this person undercover police? Oh, is this person secretly a PLA agent?
Or is this person like paid mainland protester? Honestly, there are enough people in Hong Kong who are pro-Beijing, though, that they wouldn't necessarily need to bus people in from the mainland.
There was a fairly large protest yesterday of pro-police people who were very obviously pro-Beijing. They had Chinese flags, and they were tearing up all of the art and posters put up by these protesters.
Yeah, and
attacking some of the other protesters.
Like getting into altercations with journalists, with just foreigners who happened to be there, with other protesters. Police basically had to go around and stop them. So, for people who support the police, they were creating a lot of work for the police. Patrick C. donated 398 Hong Kong dollars. Thank you. And says, thank you for your coverage and your hard work. Stay safe and hydrated.
Yeah, I'm really appreciating how important it is to stay hydrated because as we were saying earlier, when we were in Victoria Park, a lot of people were getting heat stroke. And it's pretty serious when you get heat stroke. Like the people they're not functional at that point.
Yeah, this is definitely a harder day than the last big march 2 weeks ago. It's hotter, the sun's shining, a lot of people going down, also because the police kept people penned up for so long at Victoria Park.
In the full sun.
Yeah, so it was, it's definitely been, like that, the 2 million one felt a little bit more festive, I would say, than this.
Yeah. Wait.
Okay, Rejoy Jose donated 40. Is it rubies? Love for India. Was Hong Kong situation discussed in G20? It was definitely brought up by some of the people. Like Shinzo Abe, the Prime Minister of Japan, brought it up with Xi Jinping directly.
Like as soon as he landed, it was great.
I'm not sure. I don't know if I've seen a lot of reporting about who else brought it up.
No, though we have been not as plugged in as we might have once been.
Samuel Carlson donated 50 Swedish krona. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Calvin Chan
donated $4.99. Stay hydrated. Speaking of passport, Wikipedia's main page has a not so subtle pointer to Hong Kong today. Oh, that's great. I'm glad to hear Wikipedia is pointing out about it. And actually, Wikipedia has been pretty good about handling China. Like, they, for a long time, tried to keep the Chinese version open in mainland China. That eventually got censored. And then more recently, all of Wikipedia has been censored in China. But, Wikipedia can be a powerful tool for educating people. So there are ways that Chinese trolls can kind of subvert Wikipedia as well. Somebody just said... Star donates $6, says, this Hong Kong girl I date online chatting, says Hong Kong is now China and should listen to the party. Disgusting. I stopped talking to her. LOL. Well, that doesn't sound like it would have been a good long-term relationship. Though it could have been a one relationship, two systems policy. I don't know. I'm severely dehydrated. That's all.
Someone suggests that we go to Shepherd's Pub, buy ourselves 3 large capacity portable battery chargers with 3 neck hanging mini fans and 3 5-liter hydration packs. Stays cool and hydrated. Yeah, we've seen a lot of Hong Kongers walking around with those fans. Actually,
it's a good idea. We did find this one Thai place that has an amazing coconut smoothie that is just so nourishing after a day like this.
Steve P. donated $10 and said, do you think there's a goal to the protest that doesn't lead to violent repression from CCP out of fear of contagion?
Well, so the basic demands of the protesters are to withdraw the extradition bill. They've only kind of said they'll postpone it. They want it withdrawn. They also want an independent inquiry into whether police use excessive force on the night of June 12th. That was a Wednesday. And
Wednesday several weeks ago.
There's also some talk of demanding that Carrie Lam resign, but that does not seem to be a hard rule for all of the protesters. And I think a lot of these demands would not bring a violent repression from Beijing. That's always in the back of people's minds, but for Beijing to actually send in PLA troops would be such a PR disaster. I can't imagine it would happen. I think if they have any strategy, it's just to try and wait it out and hope it all blows over.
Somebody asked what they're yelling. They're saying, Hong Kong, add oil, which is like a go Hong Kong.
Shelley, can you hold this for a moment? I need to refuel some Picari Sweat.
Okay.
My muscles are cramping. Go ahead.
Tai Nguyen. Win donated 10 Australian dollars and said, keep up the good work, stay safe. Thank you. Yeah, so someone said they came back from the Legislative Council. A lot of people are from the big rally are joining students in front of the Legislative Council building. It's going to be nasty, Jiayo. Yeah, so that's one of the things the police were trying to prevent is this big protest kind of melding into the people at the Legislative Council. But that seems to be happening anyway, and after we do this live, that's where we're heading, to take a look at what's happening over there.
Yeah, we might have to start heading there pretty soon, actually, so we'll just take a few more questions and wrap up this live chat.
Rilla Ho donated 2,000 won, thank you. Said South Korean government is ignoring Hong Kong.
Well, to be fair, the South Korean government is dealing with everything that's happening with North Korea right now, which does seem to be moving forward in a way that hasn't ever been happening. So I can let that slide, maybe. Matt the Ginger. Oh, thanks again, Matt the Ginger. Gave $5 New Zealand. Apologies if you already covered this. Does the CCP have significant penetration into the Mandarin language media in Hong Kong? Yes, that is one of the major tactics of the Chinese Communist Party's United Front. They buy up influence in Chinese language media around the world. In a couple of days, we're going to have an interview with a guy named Sunny Loh, all about the United Front.
And Hong Kong specifically.
Is a specific ground zero for there.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely tabloids that are the pro-CCP tabloids, and then there are the pro-democracy tabloids and stuff like that. There's it's a very divided media system. The main broadcaster here, TVB, is seen as kind of like a pro-establishment broadcaster. So there's a lot of opinions about Hong Kong media.
Yeah. Let's get this last New Zealand one. Peter Young donated $16.99 New Zealand. Thank you very much. So Matt's giving one last look at the protesters. I think we need to start making our way over to the Legislative Council to see what's going on there.
If it's super interesting, aka dangerous, we'll come back with a live.
But stay tuned because we might go live later tonight if the late night protests always get a little more interesting, if you will. So, a Korean name donated 10,000 won. Thank you so much. Mentions Dr. Kim Jong-min. He's a Korean professor who's been sharing a lot of our videos, so we really appreciate that. All right, so I think now we're going to sign off for this live. Stay tuned because we might do one later tonight if the protests get fun. All right, so talk to you next time. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell.
Shelley John.
Thanks for watching China Uncensored.